Marhaba, ahleen, assalamu alaikum. I think we're going to get started now with our program for the evening. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Ramzy Farouki. I'll be the moderator of this panel discussion. I am myself a Palestinian from Ramle and Jerusalem, both parents displaced in 48 and 67 respectively. We're going to start out this discussion with a poem read by artist and writer Anis Mojgani. Anis is the 10th Poet Laureate of Oregon. Born and raised in New Orleans, he currently lives here in Portland, where he can occasionally be found at the window of his Southeast Art Studio, reading out of it at sunset, reading poems to others. His most recent book is The Tigers, They Let Me.
Thank you. Grateful to share this space with y'all. Because Israel is burning Palestinians and still they are cold. Because Palestinians are being starved and still they are being hunted. Because the hearts of Palestinians are the same shade as every flower. Because their flowers are in communion with the same sun. Because they dare to be planted in the same earth they grew from. Because too many are still standing still and smiling in the waves of someone else's tsunami. Because those who do not get that there actually is only one body of water. Because we are running out of people and there's a finite number of people. Because people seem to want less people on this earth until it is their people. Because fire spreads. Because burnt beams break. Because rotten timber splits and collapses into what it was erected to shelter. Because salvaged wood builds anew and ash cleans soot. Because I am able to sit with a coffee as it snows down in southern Oregon while pointing inside a poem far from this burning. Because I still love America even if I do not believe in it, or maybe I do not love America but I still believe in it because what was given to us here was also taken from someone else. Because I voted for liars and still do not know if I won't vote for liars again, because what has been given to me has also at times been taken from someone else. Because beneath polished stones beside the Mediterranean, my namesake is interred there with the best beloved. Because the salt of Galilee made me float. Because outside of Akka I counted waves. Because inside Haifa at the foot of 19 staircases, I swallowed spices beneath a night sky so large and bright that but for the stars that night held, I could have mistaken it for the roof of my own cavernous heart. Because Arabic does not sound like Farsi, but to others what looks the same sounds the same. Because Arabic doesn't sound like Farsi unless we are singing. Because do you not sound like me inside the dreaming and inside the dark? Because Arabic and Farsi and Hebrew bird the same song at the base of the throat, because there is one collection of chords and an infinite number of harmonics, because we are all inside the same cage. Because Monk said the piano doesn't got any wrong notes. Because are we not all that we have? Because are we all not lost in the woods? And because the only way out is for me to put my hand in yours and for you to put your hand in mine. And because it is here for us to put our hands in the hands of others, and because we must hold one another, and because to where the woods end, we must lead each other, and because it is here inside of us, at the edge of ourselves, that the edge of something else might begin. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anis. Words really don't suffice to describe the feeling that I know every Palestinian and every lover of humanity has felt in these 6 months. But to say for 6 months we have witnessed an unrelenting act of collective punishment against a people. It's expressed as an act of mass murdering, mass displacement, and a full debilitation of structures and systems within one of the most densely populated places on the planet, upon a people who have quite literally nowhere to go but into further dispossession. The losses are immeasurable, and the scale is truly unfathomable. And the way in which we receive these numbers, these facts on the ground, these accounts, we are inundated. Information cascades upon us through devices or the television, and it's presented next to everything else, as if it were everything else. And I think that this is one of the leading causes for this enraging business as usual that we see around us. Because that is the nature of consuming information about human death on such a massive scale through the tools that are also used to do everyday life. So why it's important, what is important is to take a moment to process, and not through these tools and these abstract representations, but through the stories and voices of individuals within your community who can speak with a direct connection. And hopefully with that direct connection, you can feel what can only be felt and not talked about. You have to feel with them. With that being said, I'm going to speak about our panelists a little bit, just a short bio about each of them before I start passing off to them. I also want to let you know that there will be notes circulating around intermittently, cards for you to jot down questions that we will look at the end of the panelists' discussions, and hopefully get to address some of those. Our first speaker was intended to be Dr. Ahmed Ebeid, who is the son of a United Nations employee experiencing the world from a very young age. After receiving his medical degree in Cairo, Ahmed returned to America to continue his professional training. He acquired his residency from Illinois' Masonic Medical Center in Chicago and 2 specialty fellowships in pain management from Stanford University and pediatric anesthesia from the University of Michigan. After working in the private practice on the East Coast for several years, he moved to Oregon in 2008 to open up his own clinic. Now, Dr. Ebeid is a strong advocate of humanitarian relief efforts. He travels on medical missions whenever possible. Missions have taken him to Uganda, Yemen, Guatemala, and several times to Gaza since 2012. His last mission to Gaza was in February, and he is currently on and just ending his 6th mission. His wife Noura is here today and will be speaking on his behalf due to his delayed departure. He is en route though. Noura is a community organizer, an activist, and an educator. Noura enjoys supporting her husband on his missions, and together she homeschooled their kids, and together they raise a foster child. Our second speaker will be Asma Taha, a Palestinian woman and the daughter of parents displaced during the 1948 Nakba. With a background as a pediatric nurse and nurse practitioner, she has dedicated the past 2 decades to volunteering in the West Bank and Gaza, offering specialized care to children in need. Recently returning from a mission with the UN/World Health Organization, WHO, convoy to Gaza, Asma served at the Emrati Hospital for Maternity and Children in Rafah, demonstrating her unwavering commitment to humanitarian efforts. And lastly, we will have Michael Fakhri. He's the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to food. He has closely followed and spoken to the war in Gaza since its outbreak, and was one of the first voices in the UN system, amongst other special reporters, to raise the alarm of the genocide in Gaza. He is also a professor at the University of Oregon School of Law. Without further ado, we will pass to Noura.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramzy. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for being here. It's an honor to, narrate through my husband's presentation. He wished he could be here. He's actually getting on a plane right now in Cairo, so thank God he's on his way home. Okay.
This is best.
So they're starting to play a video that was, what do you need me to do?
You could be your team. They stay here with you. For we have surgeons, orthopedists, anesthesiologists, and then the matches we got. They will be part of your team. How take it? أحمد أبيد أنا أستاذ أستاذ محمد أستاذ على البيت هو أي زي ما لا معك أحمد أبيد تقديم أهلا وسهلا and here we are. We finally bring them here. Okay, so they are going to stay here for 2 weeks actually, and then we are already organizing the next rotation. The fact that you are so delighted for the efforts to bring an excellent team here for what the people here.
Today we drove from the south to the north with complete ruins all through the road. There is no building that's left intact. The working conditions for the medical staff here is very hard. They are working without support, so they're working tirelessly, they're exhausted, very limited supplies. They have to be more like magicians. The doctor is trying to figure out how to help the patients with whatever they have. It's a very, very hard situation.
The people here are absolutely amazing, and they're worth every, if we could save one life, we can make a difference for one child. If we can get one child transferred out of here to an outside country to get the care he needs for a limb reconstruction or rehab for amputation, it's worth it. We all have to do our part.
So, مرحبا مرحبا
Okay. Speed up. C'est quoi? Someone sweet. Madam Mujawad? Okay. Good. That's it.
Today we went again to Kamal Adwan Hospital in North Gaza. We successfully deployed an international emergency medical team that will support the hospital for the next weeks. Additionally, we also referred one critical patient affected by cystic fibrosis from Kamal Adwan here to IMC Field Hospital in Rafah, together with the caretaker and the rest of the family. And in the next few days, we will also coordinate for the international medical evacuation abroad.
It was a pretty heavy mission, but we are really happy that it was successful. We already could evacuate 2 patients last Saturday, and we hope that we can proceed like this because there are many, many, many more people that urgently need better medical care.
So they basically got together as a team. Everybody met up in Cairo. There were several organizations, about 50 healthcare workers with different organizations, and basically they geared up, packed up 20 vans and drove them to the Rafah border. The drive is typically about 5 or 6 hours, but it took about 13 hours with all the checkpoints that they have to go through. And at the border, you can see this video will illustrate the miles and miles of aid trucks that we keep hearing about, if they can play it. Yeah, we muted the sound just because they were having too much fun talking in the van. But it is real. There is absolutely endless miles of trucks, and the aid is just sitting right at the border, not being put to use. This is more just images of the pileup. It's a massive pileup of aid. On the other side, just a few hundred meters from the border, you can see in this video a tent city, also miles and miles, and the aid is literally right across on the other side of that wall. And the people are in dire, dire need of all this aid. And this is just them displaced and setting up these temporary tent cities. So they first stopped in Rafah. Ahmed's team had 10 members on it. They stopped in Rafah, dropped off 6 of the team members before they went up to the north with the 4 that went up there with the UN convoy. These are just images of Rafah. On the right side, this tent was actually pitched up by a family right on top of their old demolished home. Very, very powerful image, in my opinion. Again, bread lines that we've been seeing constantly all over the news. On the left, they're digging a hole for an outhouse. These tent cities don't have running water, they don't have facilities. So they dig up a hole, put up tarp around it. When it's filled and can no longer be used, they bury it up and they move on to another location to make another outhouse for the people in the area. This video is inside the hospital of the first hospital they stopped at the European General Hospital in Khan Yunis. Once they play it, you can see that the families of the healthcare workers or people who are being treated are staying in these tents inside of the hospital. Hopefully they can play it. Should we keep going? Okay, no worries. So it shows you tents, basically inside the hospital. I tried to keep it not gruesome at all. This is the least gruesome I can show you, just an OR after, a procedure that happened. Bullets. This one in particular was pulled out of a child's head. Hundreds of them every day being pulled out of people's head. They're extremely targeted by the drones that are used as sniper drones. Our healthcare workers are amazing. They just camp out wherever they can. They have their sleeping bag. Ahmed took a sleeping bag with him and a pillow. They're actually camping out in the hospital's administrative offices. I think there was about 10 of them in each room. So this video, I hope they have this one, because this is the journey up north, and this one shows the massive destruction. Ahmed swears he hadn't seen one building intact, not one, during their entire 3-hour drive up north. One of the things he does mention over and over is what we see on social media and on the news is a drop in the bucket. He swears that it's so much worse, that we're not actually getting the real image of what's happening there. This is now them in the north. The left image is right outside of the hospital, Kamal Adwan Hospital, that they were working out of. That is supposed to be their electrical infrastructure for the hospital that was attacked and bombed right outside in that courtyard. More destruction. You can see that was a mosque at some point. The image on the right was sent to me by one of the physicians that was with him, the ER doc that was with them on the team. It's like a cart, and a family is wheeling out their dead son out of the hospital in the courtyard. So if you can play this video, one of the things that he mentions.
Compound of the hospital, and strike is happening right behind us. Let's see the school code station. A couple blocks. Everyone's departing now to
So the attacks are extremely deliberate. They're targeted, like Anis was mentioning in his beautiful recitation of his poem. it seems like they're hunted. It just feels like when they come in, the bullets are very targeted. They attack at night. So this is sundown, it's Ramadan, people are fasting, and this is when they start attacking. So this smoke that you see is just right from after some shelling that just happened. This is just some of the images of the team at work. They're helping each other. The ER doc that's with them, Dr. Farhan, was really happy that he was able to be walked through an amputation. He's never had to do that here. They're actually having suhoor, which is the breakfast that we have right before they start fasting. The image on the left, so when they traveled up north, they had to travel in armored UN vehicles in the convoy. They had to wear their helmets and bulletproof vests. So when Dr. Farhan sent us this picture, I didn't realize how much they were going to go through to get to the north. And if you could play this video, this is a beautiful video of them taking a break to pray at the evening prayers or Taraweeh.
الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
The healthcare workers are exhausted. They've been at this for 6 months, no breaks, no pay. Whoever's left behind is very minimal because their peers are either dead, injured, or displaced to other locations to protect their own families. They have to work nonstop at the hospital, go home, figure out food and water and a safe place to stay at night for their families. And they just take these little breaks to eat their iftar while they're fasting and then pray. One of the prayers that they were mentioning is they just wanted a break from all the incoming patients because it was nonstop one night. This is the last image. The same thing that Ahmed keeps talking about and the other physicians that are on his team is how resilient, how beautiful, how much faith the Gazans have, their resilience. The shell in the middle, Ahmed brought home from his first mission in February. It reads, من غزة مع الحب رغم الألم, which means from Gaza with love despite the pain. And somebody made them and they gifted them to him, a few of these to take home. They take care of their guests even in war, even in a genocide. They feed them, they gift them when they leave, they have a place for them to stay. It's a people of hope and resilience, and it's amazing, it's incredible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noura. Now, I'd like to present Asma.
Thank you, Ramzy. I'm waiting for my slides. Thank you so much for making time this evening to join us. I'm really impressed with the resilience and courage of the people of Oregon and Portland. Like, in spite of the cold and the rain, you guys always show up, so thank you. So I'm going to share some similar stories to what Noura shared from Dr. Ahmed. I was privileged to be in Gaza from middle of February till beginning of March, and I'm going to share a few pictures with you. And this is a video which is similar to what Noura have shown. I don't know if we can play it. But the amount, this is before you arrive to Rafah border. This is checkpoint number 10 before we go in. So you can see the amount of the trucks of aids lined up. All those trucks have to be cleared by the IDF before they enter. Otherwise, if they enter, if the Egyptians let them enter, they will become a target. So no one can enter without the approval of the IDF. So you could drive for almost an hour, and basically trucks lined up, 4 lines of trucks at each side. So we crossed the border, and you enter Gaza. We were picked up by an ambulance from the Ministry of Health. And this is what you see. A lot of tents. People have been displaced from the north. This is unfortunately how trash is collected. And Noura was talking about how people create toilets or bathrooms. And this is the last image in there, show you that basically they will create a place, dig it, and they put like tarps around the side so to use it as a bathroom. Driving through, you can see the rubble everywhere. And I think the second picture is a video through that. There is not one single street that is left undestroyed. Most buildings have gotten hit in a way or another. And here, I think I have some videos from there. I don't know if you could play any of them or not. But those pictures from the streets of Gaza. And then we arrived to our destination. So we basically stayed at the Indonesian field hospital. And this is our team. So in the picture with the face mask, that was my son after he got injured, taking care of a newborn baby. And then Dr. Arham and Ahmed and Khulud. Arham and Khulud are from Loma Linda University Medical Center. I have worked with them for years, so they joined us on this trip. And talking about the people hospitality, like, you know, truly they hardly have any food, and yet they will gather what they have, and they want you to come and share a meal with you as a guest. So we were always showered with their generosity. And the hospital food supplies came from the World Central Kitchen. Like every single day, they delivered meal to the patients and to the staff. And it's really sad to see what have happened with them in the last week. So we worked at the Emirati hospital, and the Emirati hospital is a women and maternity and children hospital. So we staff the NICU. The staff, the doctors and the nurses and everyone is exhausted. They have been working all kinds of hours. They don't have stable homes to go to. Many of the staff actually is displaced from the northern hospitals, and they are working here. So if you look in this incubator in here, you see like four babies in one incubator, and they are not related, by the way. Those are not like brothers and sisters. There is no rooms to put kids. And remember that Rafah used to host 300,000 people. Now it houses 1.5 million people. So the amount of people that is displaced in Rafah is overwhelming every aspect of service. So you have 4 babies in there, and we put the stickers with each kid name, and we put the names. Sometimes we put a piece of tape on each kid so we identify which kid is it, so you don't give them the wrong medication. And in the next picture in here, you see a child who's on a breathing, on a ventilator, but we are still putting 2 kids who are very sick on the same incubator because there is no room to put those kids. Here is the triage area, and we took turn every day staffing the triage area. And in this area, you see over 100 kids in the morning shift, like from 8 o'clock till 4 or 5 o'clock. The amount of kids that you see, they are either malnourished or septic or very sick, like, with respiratory illnesses. And you could see this child on the corner. I don't know if there is a pointer in here, but this is like a 3-month-old infant that does not look like even a 2 weeks baby. And that's because of the severe malnutrition. There is no baby formula. Moms are hardly having enough food to eat or having clean water to drink. So basically, moms are not able to breastfeed because some of the people said, well, why mom does not breastfeed? Well, if they can, they would. And then in the lower picture, which is a little picture, I just want to share the story of Yusuf. So Yusuf is standing with Ahmed, and he's a pediatric, supposedly resident. Yusuf went to school in Sudan for medical school, graduated, finished his internship year at Shifa Hospital. Then he started his residency in pediatric at Kamal Adwan. He started after 1 week of orientation in the NICU. The war started, then suddenly he became the attending of the unit. There is nobody left. Everybody were either displaced or people moved. And he was left in the neonatal ICU alone with 5 nurses. Eventually, Yusuf had to evacuate. They were basically told that they have to leave. Many of the newborns died in that unit. And Yusuf basically had to take the 5 left alive babies, put them in an ambulance, and bring them to Emirati hospital. And those 5 infants, they are 6 months old now. They are living in a neonatal ICU because there is no parents to be found. One of the babies was adopted by one of the female nurses who's not married. So she basically is taking one of the girls home and basically raising her. But it just, for me, the resilience of what people go through. Those nurses and doctors have not been paid for the last 6 months a penny, and yet they still have to come to work, take care of people, and they have families who live in tents waiting for them. This is some of the equipments that we basically, like I think this warmer, were a small cot. That warmer maybe took over 100 babies a day, like, you know, and out and out and out. And I tried to clean between babies for the first few days with all the supplies that our community sent with us, but then we ran out. You know, and like I don't know how to describe this, but even in the midst of hardship, you find people who are basically wanting to connect with us. And I don't know if you recognize in the picture, this is Bisan. And Bisan is an icon in social media, and she goes around. She was displaced from the north. She has spent few nights with us in the hospital after going around and documenting what's going on. The tall guy in the picture is her brother, and the gentleman in the red sweater is her cameraman. And it was great to give her my sleeping bag when I left. Bisan and her family lives in tents. They have been displaced, and also they don't know how long they're going to stay in that tent before the next displacement come. Many of those people have been displaced 3 and 4 times. Again, every single night, people insisted on feeding us. And in this picture, so Ahmed is my son, and then the guy next to him is Abu Hamza. Abu Hamza is an ambulance driver. His ambulance was hit the first week, in the week of October 7th. He was the only survivor from the ambulance. There were other 5 people, doctor, nurse, patient, and someone else. They all died, and he was the only survivor. And you know, he had surgery because services were still functioning in Shifa. And then things start falling apart, and then he evacuated, came to the Indonesian hospital where he needed another surgery from the MSF doctors who were bringing surgeons. So just, it was very, very hard to basically, every single person we met have a story to tell you, either their own stories or their loved families, and they are still willing to come and drink a cup of tea with you and insist that you share time and jokes, and you know, it just, I don't know. I think if we talk about resilience, although I really hate the word resilient, because it means that we can take more abuse, I think there is no greater people than the people of Gaza, truly. I don't know how long I would have lasted in these conditions. And this is the children of Gaza. So every single morning before, you know, people see that we are not from Gaza. So every morning they will gather around the hospital and try to greet us. And everybody's hungry. And some people have slippers, some people don't have slippers. I don't know if I have any videos in there. This is the morning that my son decided to go buy falafel for all the kids. And he got us into trouble.
عندك فلافل غزة. غزة هنا. حراف فلسطين، حراف فلسطين.
So in spite of all this, do you mind playing this video? See that kids are still trying to fly a kite and having a life and living their childhood in spite of all this destruction, death, hunger. I don't know if you could play the second video. I think that goes a little bit further. It flies in the air.
More picture.
So this is a kite in here. And that's the end of my slides. And again, I am very grateful for the people of Gaza who shared with me their best. And in this 2 weeks that we spent there, I honestly, till now, I feel guilty for being here. I feel guilty for being able to exit. It's just like imagining that you are trapped. You cannot go in, you cannot go out. All your movement is limited. The minute the sun goes down, nobody can leave, even in an ambulance. So all the privilege that we have, it's really, really hard to feel good. So, now, thank you.
Yeah, there'll be some, make sure that you raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. Pass the cards towards the middle, please. Someone will come collect them with a basket. Thank you so much, Asma. And finally, we have Michael Fakhri.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. It's really an honor to be on a panel with people who had direct experience. What I'll do is I'll describe what it means to be a UN Special Rapporteur. My particular mandate is on the right to food. What that means is I'm an independent expert with the United Nations. I'm not the UN, but I get my authority from the Human Rights Council to be the eyes, ears, and sometimes good conscience for the UN system on all matters regarding hunger, malnutrition, and famine. I began my mandate in 2020, and it ends in 2026. So I focus on all different parts of the world. I present my reports directly to the Human Rights Council and the General Assembly. I meet with people from all over the world, so my job is also to listen, to hear people's stories, to learn from people, and to share what I've learned. Part of my job then, when the war, this particular war in Gaza broke out in October, was I started tracking it immediately. Because on October 8th, Israel announced a total siege against Gaza and imposed a total siege and blocked all food, all water, all medical supplies from entering Gaza, and continued that siege. So from October 8th, immediately, there was a risk of starvation. And we've heard from so many different people today saying how difficult it is to describe and to find the words with what's going on. And I'm so pleased we started with Anis and with a poem, because it's in these moments of horror where it becomes almost incomprehensible. But how we name horror is incredibly important, because only by naming it correctly and with truth can we overcome it. And what I've been witnessing from my perspective has been genocide. And we raised the alarm on the risk of genocide within weeks when the war broke out. And then when we started seeing children dying from malnutrition in January, when it was starting to be reported, that's when we knew that the worst of our fears was happening, which was starvation. Starvation doesn't just happen. It's not a natural cause. Famines they're never just because of drought or whatever. Starvation is always the result of political choices. It always has been and it always will be, which means the only way to end starvation is with a political solution. Some people have said, well, how could you say it's genocide? How can you say it's starvation? It's because this is a situation where Israel announced its intent. It announced its intent to starve the Palestinian people simply for being Palestinian. And then it implemented its measures, and we're seeing the effects now. They announced that they wanted to cut off all food and water to the north first and foremost. And you saw the images. Their intent from the beginning was to empty out the north and push people to the south. So one has to ask, how did this happen? 2.3 million people, 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza were made to go hungry in a way we've never seen in modern history. We've never seen this amount of people made to go hungry so completely and so quickly. The speed has been astounding. I've consulted with every major starvation expert in the world. I've talked at the highest levels to all the humanitarian organizations, and they are all dumbfounded. They've seen horrors of the world. They've seen situations of starvation in the past, and no one's seen the speed. So one has to ask, how did Israel make the Palestinian people in Gaza go hungry so quickly and so completely? This didn't start in October, of course. We can go back multiple moments in time. Israel started strangling Gaza 17 years ago with a blockade. They had a chokehold on Gaza. They were controlling everything that went in and went out, to the point that Israel for 17 years had been counting calories to make sure that people just had the bare minimum so not to starve and raise international alarm for 17 years. But even before that, what we're talking about, of course, is 80 years of occupation, displacement, and apartheid. This is a settler colony, after all. Only under these very particular political conditions was Israel able to starve 2.3 million Palestinians so quickly and so completely. So not only is Israel denying and restricting humanitarian aid, not only is Israel bombarding convoys time and time and time again, even though those convoys are coordinating with the IDF, not only is Israel shooting civilians as they are getting humanitarian aid, Israel is also destroying the food system itself in Gaza, making it impossible for Palestinians to feed themselves and making it very difficult for them to feed themselves into the future. In times of horror like this, it's difficult to imagine a future, because starvation is a very slow and vile form of violence. The effects, the biomedical effects, are felt, of course, throughout an individual's entire life. We've seen children now, there's signs of stunting. But the effects of starvation in biomedical terms also, research is showing, has intergenerational effects. Your children will be affected. But starvation is also social trauma, as the people of Ireland know when they were starved by the British, as the people of India know when they were also starved by the British. It leaves a permanent scar that echoes into the future for hundreds of years. That's what starvation is. It is both slow violence, but that echoes for generations to come. But let's also remember, we're at a very unique moment of Palestinian liberation. This is also, to build on what we've heard today, a continuation of the Palestinian struggle for self-determination. This is a continuation of the unity intifada of 2021. Let's remember in 2021, we've never seen the Palestinian people come together, whether they were 1948 Palestinians living in Israel, whether they were living in occupied West Bank, Gaza, or East Jerusalem, whether they were refugees in Lebanon, Syria, or Jordan, or whether they were living abroad in other countries. In 2021, in the history of Palestinian liberation, we saw the Palestinian people come together as a single people in the most powerful way. And that continues even more so today as we speak before you. And I will add, we've never seen global solidarity, people all over the world, from every country you can imagine, from across generations, coming together, organizing, speaking up against genocide, against starvation, against settler colonialism, and speaking up for everybody's right for self-determination, everybody's right for freedom. This is what's happening. So it's a moment of profound political power that's found in moments like this is the way forward. So to leave us with what is to be done is to continue everything that you're doing, to keep coming together like we are coming together today, to keep speaking up whatever way it is, whether it's in your workplace, at your school, at home, on social media, waiting for a bus, however it is, loudly, quietly, softly. You don't even have to be eloquent, just keep doing what you're already doing. Because we all know what needs to happen. There needs to be a ceasefire immediately. The United States must stop sending money and weapons to Israel because the United States is already aiding and abetting and therefore culpable for genocide and starvation. And finally, we don't just want peace, we want peace and justice. And for justice to happen, again, there must be full recognition on the Palestinian people's right to self-determination. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. I think it is very important that we sit with those closing words as a synthesis, the very synthesizing words about what is to be done. I will add to those only that the Palestinian people, and especially in this moment, the people of Gaza, giving up is not an option. Resistance is akin to necessity. And I'm reminded of the words of the Palestinian poet, Samih al-Qasim. وإلى آخر النبضة في عروقي سأقاوم سأقاوم سأقاوم, which means until the last pulse in my veins, I will resist, I will resist, I will resist. So I'll hop around a little bit thematically here. I will start with Michael. There's a question about kind of what is the UN doing to stop this. The question is, as starvation is a known horrible fact, what is happening in the UN to stop this?
Should I just take that, or are there other?
And I would say, yeah, if you take the notes, yeah,
okay,
that'd be great.
I mean, that's been the frustrating part of my job is the UN's been moving a lot slower than expected. And the UN is a lot of different moving parts. So the UN is governments coming together in different institutions. The UN is also institutions, sort of international civil servants. So I'll highlight 3 or 4 different places that things are happening or not happening, for that matter, right? The Human Rights Council was incredibly slow. Nothing happened for 6 months until this week. till this week was finally the Human Rights Council came up with a resolution. And it was a strong resolution. It was finally a call for a ceasefire. So that's one of the spaces in the UN where there was a strong call for a ceasefire in the context of a resolution, also calling for recognition of Palestinian right to self-determination. So that's been some of the strongest political consensus we've seen. The General Assembly as well. The General Assembly is where every single country sits and gets a vote. This is in New York City. There's been some, again, a good push. Where nothing's been happening is the Security Council. And that's because of an outdated system where the victors of World War II get a veto. And you know, there was the resolution, I forget when it was, a few months ago. And I knew the US was going to veto, but I was still watching it live. Sort of, I just needed to witness it in real time, and I was doing something really bad. Had the phone on while I was driving my spouse to work. That's wrong. But I had to have it on. And then I saw when the ambassador raised their hand, I gasped. I physically gasped. And my partner, she asked me, like, why are you gasping? You knew this was gonna happen. I told her, there's something about actually watching them sentence thousands of people to death in reality that if I'm still not shocked, even if intellectually I can predict it, then something's wrong, right? So I have no hope at this, even now they passed the resolution, whatever. What's happening, the International Court of Justice, South Africa has brought a case accusing Israel of genocide. What's important about naming it as genocide is the remedy. So we can say it's a war crime, of course it's a war crime. We can say it's a crime against humanity, of course it's a crime against humanity. What these concepts mean is this: if it's a war crime, the most that will happen is when the war ends, and then if the International Court of Justice does something, then maybe they will sentence a few individuals to go to jail. Not that useful. Same with crime against humanity. Maybe some individuals down the line will go to jail. The accusation of genocide means Israel as a state is responsible, and the remedy is recognizing the Palestinian people's human rights, writ large. And who is culpable is the state of Israel and everyone who has supported the state of Israel in terms of countries, the United States, Germany, Canada, etc. So the remedy and what happens afterwards is important in that case at the International Court of Justice. I'll end here, which is, you see now the hypocrisy of the UN. If you didn't know, I mean, many people knew, but it's so vulgar and so blatant now that countries like the United States, countries like Germany, what little moral authority they had left, I think is being lost.
Thank you very much, Michael. This question, I'm lumping a couple together. This is a question I'm sure a lot of you have, is are there any opportunities for civilians in or around Gaza? And then with that as well, are there opportunities for sponsorship of children in Gaza? But I think the question for civilians is one that many people are asking themselves. So I don't know if...
Well, I can tell you right now, civilian, it's very hard to enter because everybody has to get approved by the United Nations, WHO, and what they don't tell you, we also have to get approval by the Israelis. So if you don't have a reason for being there, like the only reason they allow us, we are providing medical aids. But there will be time that everybody's help is needed. You know, this is gonna come to an end or in a way or another. And we are hoping that we will go back and rebuild. And this will take years, even if it's 100 years. I think all of you will be needed. And civilian will be needed in all aspects: logistics, transport, water, everything is damaged. So think of any talent you have, any professional experience, and think it will be needed. But Now I think our main goal is to get a ceasefire in place, get those people some relief.
Yeah, I do know that there are a couple of organizations that need volunteers at the border in Arish and Rafah to help with the donations that are coming in between storing, boxing, packing, loading. There are not a lot of organizations, but there are a couple. I know my son was considering going there for a couple of weeks to help out. So keep an eye out on that with these organizations. You may find some spots if you want to travel over there. But yeah, nobody's going into Gaza unless there's some sort of healthcare worker.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I want to echo what Asma said, is that the work to be done is constant. So whether or not you have medical skills, your skills are necessary in advocating for Palestine. And this will be a necessity going forward, not just at this time.
You know, the second part of the question regarding evacuating kids from Gaza, you have seen the videos that Dr. Ahmed sent. And honestly, it takes a lot of organization, a lot of courage for those 4 men with the United Nations team to travel up north to evacuate a child who have a cystic fibrosis. You know, it's by the blessing of God that they are alive, because we have seen many ambulances, many United Nations cars get hit. So evacuating people is really, really hard. And then the other hardship, like, you know, when people's houses were destroyed, nobody was sleeping with their passport in their pocket or their ID. So even to get document for those people, like the people who are displaced in the south, many of them don't have papers. And they are trying to connect with the Palestinian Authority to get papers, to send them to Egypt, and from Egypt to Gaza. So there is a lot of challenges. And I think we all want to help, but the background is very complex.
Thank you very much. One question that I see come up here, which I personally would like to know the answer to, is are there any mental health services left in Gaza, Khan Yunis, Rafah? You know, we tend to think only about triage, emergency services, but you did mention, and we've talked about these issues.
Actually, there is none. And we just had a meeting on Sunday with another non-profit organization trying to deploy doctors, and mental health was discussed in there. The thing is, you need mental health specialists also who speaks Arabic. Mm-hmm. And the mental health needed for the general population, but also it's very needed for the healthcare workers that have seen all those tragedies day in, day out. Mm-hmm. So there is none needed, and I don't think it's being prioritized. I think the top people who are being sent now are surgeons and anesthesiologists. Also, we are pushing a lot for primary care, because the people in the tents, there is multiple tents are created as a clinics to basically take care of people. Sorry.
Thank you. This is also a related question. I think, you know, that people who are in healthcare or you know, adjacent to healthcare would like to know is, as a healthcare worker in Palestine, how are healthcare workers prioritizing supplies in patients? Do we have any idea about the triage process?
So I worked in triage. We triaged children and we triaged infants. Basically, sick kids, we try to admit them. The problem is when you admit them, you don't have enough IV fluid, you don't have medication, you don't have enough IV antibiotics. So you try to triage as much as you can. And you saw the situation, like, you know, you put 3-4 kids in one small bed together or cut together. So we triage, but it's not an optimal situation for anyone. And then at the Indonesian hospital, where you have a lot of burns and a lot of orthopedic traumas, again, you try to triage, but people are doing their best.
Yeah. So groups and cities around the nation are rallying for ceasefire resolutions. From within healthcare institutions, how can we pressure medical institutions to take the same stance?
I think we need more voices. I can tell you, I have written to the president of the ANA for the nurses who are in the room, the American Nurses Association. It's one of the biggest health group in the country. We have way more nurses than anyone else. I have written to the International Council of Nursing, who's also the president is a US citizen from Virginia. I'm not sure how many people have written to those people. I know that there is some efforts at the AMA to write to the American Medical Association and try to pressure them. But I think we need voices, we need people. So please help us, please advocate in your spaces. And I think the more we speak, the more we talk about it, hopefully someone will listen. It's not today, tomorrow. It's not tomorrow after tomorrow. We have to be persistent. I don't know if I answered the question the way you want, or?
Yeah, if anyone else. I would like to add that, one of the most difficult struggles we have living in, the core of the biggest supporter of the occupation is being able to stand up where you are. And I think we have to have better communication between our kind of siloed communities and our different trades or different industries to help stand up if somebody is facing retaliation in their workplace, that it's not just their friends and their friend circle that's going to be there to support them, but people across trades, across unions, across different groups, because speaking up in your place of work is one of the most difficult, but how much time do we spend at work? And often how little do we say because we're afraid for retaliation in our place of work. I'd like to say that there are organizations who are thinking more politically on a grassroots organizing, like the Oregon Palestine Coalition, that are really intersectional in this sense, and you can learn a lot of language from these organizers. So please look to those resources. Again, that's the Oregon Palestine Coalition. I think that this is a great question. Is the UN corrupt and or controlled by the big powers around the world?
No, it's not corrupt. It's doing what it was designed to do, and that's the problem, right?
Systems of oppression.
Yeah, international law was created to colonize us, but this is what's also interesting is you can also resist within these spaces. And I think the UN is at an existential moment. What I've told every ambassador, minister, or leader of a UN institution is how you respond to Gaza today will determine the future of the entire UN and international law itself. It's a defining moment. And I think what has worked is what we heard in the other questions is the more people organize and mobilize and speak up, it forces these institutions to respond. Politicians don't do anything they don't have to do. So we have to force them to do the right thing. And it goes the same with the United Nations. And what's interesting to me is that we don't vote and elect the people at the UN, but they are just as sensitive to people organizing and mobilizing. But especially, to echo what's been said, especially in the United States. The United States as a country has the most power to end the war right now and to have a ceasefire. And if the US stopped sending weapons right now, it would stop.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And participation, there are people in your community right now, students who are being retaliated against in Portland State University for simply asking divestment from Boeing, for instance. So, this is something that I like to bring up. It's that This is how we, like a divestment campaign, the BDS campaign, students going to their universities, to their institutions where millions of dollars are being funneled to, groom and train the next generation of pushing the machine forward, resisting against that and supporting those who do. Because there are student organizations right here in this city right now who are facing the brunt of a mass retaliatory atmosphere that is all over college campuses everywhere. And college campuses are where organizing is ignited traditionally. So please look to these spaces, these vulnerable populations within your community, and support them. You don't have to look far. At Portland State University, one of the only Palestinian organization over there that's politically active and advocating. So please do support people who are resisting against this kind of military machine in your backyard. I want to end, I think we got a couple minutes before Adan. Let's see if this one, here's. Okay, yeah, that's right, thank you. So even if you are not staying for dinner, please stick around to learn more about healthcare workers for Palestine and other organizations that are doing necessary work, and for opportunities to get involved and donate as well. I'm going to say, for those who have visited Gaza in this group, there's a question that I would like to put forward. What was the most beautiful moment you experienced in Gaza?
Oh my gosh, there are so many. The people, the children. Mus'ab calls my son every single day. He's an 8-year-old child. And the other day my son is driving me to work and he put him on FaceTime, thinking he found an internet spot to call. The people are very beautiful, very, very beautiful. Children, older people, young people. I learned one word. They insisted that they have to teach me one word because one night we had a rough night. We did not know if the morning will come or not, but the word that they taught me, matiglagish. Matiglagish is don't worry. So the sky could be falling, but their response, matiglagish. And that basically a certain their belief and their faith in God. Like, whatever is gonna happen is gonna happen. Doesn't matter if you get worried or you don't worry about it. So every single day I hear this, matiglagish.
They were comforting you.
Yeah, they were comforting me. So, their companionship, the way they run their life, the way they are coping with all this, their gratitude. Like, you can't believe how grateful they were that we are there to help. And I feel like, how much I'm helping in here. But they are very grateful for an additional hand to feed a baby or to see a child or to run the triage room. The gratitude that I've seen, I have never seen in my life. Never.
Well, I think we are going to have, we're pretty lucky here today. Someone's going to do the call to prayer. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone for being present, for taking the time to be present here and process and be engaged. Keep speaking up about Palestine in all your spaces. Again, thank you so much, the organizers of this event. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And then a little after the call to prayer, when you exit to the right here, there's space to pray to the left directly for those of you who are praying. Right directly here to your right, you will see water and dates for people to break their fast. We ask that anybody who is not fasting to kind of wait back, and let the line get started for the people who are fasting. And again, there's 18 spots that are left, so if you didn't register, make sure you kind of hang back. Thank you so much, everybody. We got, oh, okay. We'll take one more, maybe one more question. We got 3 more minutes. Let's see. Well, you know, I have an anecdote. I was never in Gaza, unfortunately, but I did travel to my homeland, and I traveled as close to Gaza as I could get. And I remember that I actually saw people. There was a section of the fence where there were people hanging out pretty close by, and they told me that they asked me to come and eat, and I told them I can't. You know, and they said you're missing out. You know, and I agree with the Teglagish is a wonderful statement from the people of Gaza, reminding you that there are people here in your community from Gaza. There are fundraisers going on, raising money for their families. Please look to the student organizing. I gotta remind you, look to the student organizing. Super on the PSU campus. There's a group called Oregon Palestine Coalition that's in town. They are your best resources for knowing what events are happening, what is going on. There are many types of events that are happening all across the board. I myself, as well as someone here, my co-director, Zandy, the Center for Study and Preservation of Palestine, lectures, various events to kind of highlight Palestinian resistance as existence, and wonderful work that's being done through there. So please do look around your community and ask them what can be done, and keep your eyes and ears open. There's a lot happening, and we hope to. And I do believe that if you found out about this event, there will be more events organized through this channel as well. So you'll be able to show up in that way. Again, thank you everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And صحتين and تقبل Allah to our people who are fasting and praying.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Asma. Really, this was really an honor to sit with you and to meet you.
Is he going to say the picture player here?